I was able to stack up 60,973 points for damaged flying arc enemies inside the spaceport walls. This was during a close scrutiny event, obviously on Spaceport. Now for my equipment, I brought in an arsenal of Wolfpacks, 16 in total. I brought a Jupiter with a single stack of ammo, an anvil with a single stack of ammo, 2 light shields, a Raider hatch key, a couple sets of shielding, healing, and adrenaline shot items, as well as a snap hook, zip lines, and a photoelectric cloak. Now the method to the madness here is essentially one wolf pack can eliminate one vaporizer as long as you hit it with a Jupiter first and force it to open its shield. When you take out one full vaporizer, you get somewhere around 3,300 points for one full elimination. Now, while my primary focus was vaporizers, keep in mind that every flying arc enemy gives a slightly different score. Spotters will give you 176 points each, Wasp will give you 242, Snitches will give you 348, Fireflies and Hornets both give 440, and Rocketeers give 2,420, making Vaporizers the highest earning potential out of all the flying arc enemies. Once you spawn in, you want to head for the launch towers, essentially the center of the map within inside the spaceport walls. If you're not sure, this challenge specifically refers to all eliminations of flying arc enemies inside of these specific walls. Any elimination that takes place outside of the walls will not award you points. The goal here with this strategy is to try and isolate the vaporizers as much as possible. Pull them to you in an area where not as many players are so you can use a wolf pack and absorb all of that damage and all of the trials points. That said, in general on Spaceport during this event, there are not as many random vaporizers roaming around, so you're going to need to rotate between assessors and pull the aggro from there. During this run, I prioritized using my wolf packs up front, trying to get them out as quickly as possible, but trying my best to ensure that they always took out a vaporizer or a set of enemies and gave me as many points as possible. Towards the end of the round, once more players left the match, I actually found a bunch more vaporizers roaming the map, and I didn't have wolf packs to take them down easily. So I would recommend moderating your wolf pack usage up front and just try and use the Jupiter to stack up damage as much as you can. Now coming in with only a single stack of energy ammo is because you can get stacks of energy ammo off of the vaporizers. And again, if you're isolating them to you, this makes it very easy to grab stacks of ammo as you go. Using the wolf packs a little bit early on will also free up bag space for you to grab that as you go. Now, most of the assessors will spawn inside the spaceport walls, but there is one that spawns just outside of it. But it doesn't necessarily prevent you from being able to stack up score. You just have to be smart with your positioning and ensure that you're putting yourself in a position where you can pull the aggro to you and get those flyers inside the spaceport wall so that you can stack up those points. Now, speaking of cover, as you are fighting vaporizers, you need to make sure that you don't ego them from somewhere where you don't have a significant amount of cover or even a building to duck into. It takes only a fraction of a second for you to lose all of your shields and health, and you can go down super quick if you don't have somewhere to hide behind to protect yourself from their damage. You're also going to have Rocketeers during the assessor portions, which will also create a ton of threat and can aggro to you and create the same potential risk to you being eliminated. So play around cover, and at all times I recommend playing patiently, not engaging with an enemy until you have something significant that you can duck behind. When it comes to breaching the assessors, in general, I recommend that you don't do it. Just let other players breach and search the containers so that the enemies can spawn and you can start soaking up that damage. If there are no other players that are doing the breaching, you should either leave that round and re-queue, or if you're feeling up to it, the best way you can do the breaching with the equipment you brought in is to start the breach on a probe to spawn the enemies and then quickly swap to your photoelectric cloak and walk yourself back to safety, and then engage with the enemies that have been spawned. Now, as it comes to fighting the vaporizers and fighting the other enemies that are spawned in off assessors, keep in mind that they will generally target the player that is dealing the most amount of damage to them. So if you're hitting them a bunch with your Jupiter, they will likely start to target you. And this is why you need to make sure that you are in cover and have a place to duck into at all times. If you're not familiar, the vaporizers have two basic attacks. The first is essentially a charged up sniper shot, and as long as you're within line of sight, once that charge is finished, you will take significant damage to your health and your shields. but you will not take any sort of a burn damage from that attack. Their second attack is essentially the Queen's Laser Beam. Once charged up, it will shoot out a laser that will burn the area and leave behind a lingering fire effect that will melt your shields and melt your health if you're caught in either the beam or the fire that's left behind. It really only takes 1 to 2 seconds of being in that beam to lose all of your health and shields and to get knocked by the Vaporizer. Now, as it comes to using Wolfpacks against Vaporizers, you have to remember that they have shields they use to protect themselves from projectiles. The trick to making your Wolfpacks still be effective is understanding how to trigger their shield and then using your Wolfpack right after. In general, hitting the Vaporizer with your Jupiter a couple of times is enough damage to cause it to use its shield. Once that shield comes down, throw your Wolfpack. The Wolfpack will deal massive amounts of damage and in most cases will take out the Vaporizer. Now the caveat to that is if there are other enemies in the area, your Wolfpack is going to split off and it won't do as much damage to the Vaporizer. So don't do this while you're standing out in the middle of the open because it's not a guarantee that you're going to get a full elimination if your Wolfpack decides to target other enemies. The Assessor will essentially spawn 3 different waves of enemies, and each wave will essentially be tied to when a pod has been breached. The first wave is smaller arc enemies, fireflies, wasps, and hornets. The second wave being a set of Rocketeers and Vaporizers, and then the third wave being a lot more Vaporizers. As it comes to prioritizing when to use your Wolfpacks, like I said in the beginning, I generally try to use it when I can get a full Vaporizer elimination. But you can also use it if you have a couple of Rocketeers in the area to deal massive damage to. That said, if your Wolfpack splits and does half to each, you're going to have 2 very angry Rocketeers gunning for you in a second. So you need to make sure that you're ready for that, or they're already damaged enough that your Wolfpack can finish it up. Once all 3 pods have been breached, you're going to want to rotate to the next Assessor spawn. You can tell where it is on the map based on a loud noise once the probe enters the atmosphere and begins falling to the ground. But then once the probe settles, it will emit a bright red laser that shoots up into the sky, making it very easy to locate where it is. You want to try and rotate with people to the Assessors because you're not opening them yourselves, but you don't just want to hang out at a completed Assessor picking up smaller arc enemies because it's not as valuable as getting the larger arc enemies. So it is a bit of a balance in terms of understanding when to rotate over to the next Assessor. In terms of target priority, I recommend Vaporizer, Rocketeers, then Hornets and Fireflies. After that, Wasps are fine, but they're really not a ton of value for the use of your Jupiter or even the Anvil that you brought in. Now, for the Assessor that spawns outside of the map, in both games that I tried this in, it happened both times. So I do recommend hanging out on top of the shipping warehouse and then using the Jupiter to aggro them to you, pulling the Vaporizers into the Spaceport walls where you can actually earn points for eliminations. Remember not to use your Jupiter too much when they're outside the Spaceport walls because you're burning your durability and you're not getting points for it. Outside of that, there isn't a ton more to this challenge. It is a very risky, a high risk, high reward strategy, but it is also a ton of fun if you like that intense feeling that comes from playing against these Vaporizers. Once you've stacked up enough eliminations and you're happy with your score, make sure you use a Raider hatch and head back to Speranza, collect any loot if you haven't already, and watch your score fly up the leaderboard. That's going to be it for me today, y'all. Thanks for watching. Now, since you need a ton of Wolfpacks for this, my recommendation for how to farm a good volume of Wolfpacks is using Dam Battlegrounds during an electromagnetic storm, or even a night raid works as well. On top of the pipeline tower, you can see anywhere from 4 to 5 different Rocketeer spawns from that location. Using something like an Osprey or a Renegade, you can aggro the Rocketeers to you, and then I do generally bring the Jupiter with me to make quick work of the Rocketeers. You can essentially eliminate them over the top of the pipeline tower and then be safe while you're looting them from other players, which makes it an overall good place to farm Rocketeer drivers. I generally get anywhere from 12 to 17 Rocketeer drivers during each 30-minute raid that I do on Dam Battlegrounds during an electromagnetic storm. Now, obviously, RNG plays a little bit of a role in terms of how many drivers you get per Rocketeer. So remember, as you are doing that, to loot every part of the Rocketeer, because you can also get drivers off of the thrusters. Most of the time, you will only get a single driver off of the main part of the body, but I have gotten up to 3 drivers off of the body plus 2 on the thrusters.